Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm your host, Josh, aka Jantmor. Welcome to another installment of Jantmor Interviews. And today, I have a special interview today with an amazingly talented and humble and amazing guest, the amazing Keith Szarabajka, who has been in films such as The Dark Knight, Argo, Transformers Dark of the Moon as Lazerbeak, Ironhide, and most of the Transformers video games that you've played. He's been in Halo, he's been in Fallout, he's been in anything you could name. Name it, he's done it. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please get a round and rouse of applause for the amazing Keith Szarabajka? There he is. I kicked you off for a second.
How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. I just got done having lunch with my son, who is working on the new CSI Las Vegas, the reboot of it with Billy Peterson.
Okay.
He's the coordinator for the graphics unit for them. You know, he's on a producer sort of bent right now. He's learning to become a producer.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really awesome. Well, before we get into the questions or I say anything, I would just like to say it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to speak to you and have you on and learn your stories. I mean, when I was researching your background and just what you've been in, my jaw dropped because you've been such a major part of my life as an entertainer or someone wants to get in this industry since I was a little boy. So it's so cool to be able to speak to you today, and I was so happy and honored and humbled when you said yes. I
feel honored and privileged that you asked me to be on. Thank you.
Absolutely. I was talking to my friends in class and we were just looking through the stuff you've been in, and all of us were just like, oh my god, Josh, you're doing it. I was like, I'm doing it.
It's the collection of day jobs that I laughingly refer to as my career, but
But some cool things I found out about you while I was researching some topics to talk about. I found out that you were an altar boy and you went to boarding schools. What was that experience like?
I went to boarding school. I went to a military Catholic boarding school for boys called St. Joseph's Military Academy in LaGrange Park, Illinois for 6 years. Because as my mother once said to the first woman with whom I ever lived when she met her, she goes, he was a very difficult child, And she was a great mom, but she was also a difficult mom. She was tough. She's a nice Irish Catholic mom, And I was the eldest of 6, so she didn't have time for me, and she sent me off to boarding school at the age of 7, But it was one of those schools that I went to. It was like all the big politicos of which my dad kind of was a medium-sized shot at the time, back in the early 60s in Illinois and in the Chicagoland area sent their children. That and the Mafia Dons sent their children there. So it was, I got the best of both worlds. Let me put it that way.
Well, I couldn't imagine 6. I couldn't even do it with 1. 6.
Well, I never went to a Jesuit boarding school for 3 years in high school. That was at St. Joe's, we went from Sunday night till Friday afternoon. We usually got to go home every weekend, unless you were being punished. Then you were campus, they call it, But I never got campus. I was a really good boy. I wanted to be a saint till I was 14, and then puberty hit, so it was all over after that,
I hear that.
But then I went to this Jesuit boarding school, and where they had compulsory ROTC. So it wasn't a military school per se, but we had ROTC twice a week, as a class. And I was on the drill team and stuff there. And it was, I didn't know any better. And I entered that school very much a staunch Republican, actually, when I was 13 years old. And by the time I left there at 16, I was a liberal Marxist Democrat, So I was into liberation theology. The Jesuits completely flipped me, which was great. I'll be forever grateful for that because they showed me the light,
I hear that. Wow.
That introduced me to theater, although my mother did put me in tap dancing shoes when I was 4, and I had to dance with my cousin Joyce and sing I've Been Working on the Railroad at the Bedford Park Community Center in the western suburbs of Chicago back when I was 4 years old in a little variety show. And I was scared. I was apoplectic, but I got out there, and once the people applauded and they started laughing, it was just, I was hooked from then on. It was like I was always going to be whatever. So I was an officer in military school, and I ran the drill team, and I was an altar boy from when I was in I would say fourth grade, up until I was a junior in high school. I learned the math both in Latin and in English. And the only line I ever really met was when the priest said at the end, "Ite missa est," go, the mass is ended, and I would say, "Deo gratias," thanks be to God. That was the one that I had. I learned what where deep inner feelings came from was in that.
Oh wow! What's crazy, when you said tap dancing shoes, my face lit up like a Christmas tree, because that's one thing we share in common. I used to be a tap dancer when I was a kid, but I sadly got bullied out of it because people would always talk down to me about it, and I just stopped doing it all together.
I don't know. My mom had me doing all sorts of stuff like that, and yet when I told her that I wanted to become an actor when I was 19, after I'd joined the Organic Theater Company in Chicago as a replacement in Warp, which was the world's first science fiction epic adventure play in serial form that Stuart Gordon, whom you may know from the Reanimator movie, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, he wrote that, but he was the artistic director and the creator of that, and he hired me when I was 19 to replace John Hurd, actually, in Warp. And that show went to Broadway. They did it with John on Broadway, but I got to be the understudy and do all sorts of little bugs. Although I had to go on the day after opening because we got terrible reviews. Well, actually, they were highly mixed, in which Clive Barnes of the New York Times said that Warp is beautiful junk and you should go in high spirits, if not actually high. And this was 1973. So it was kind of an advanced, let's put it this way, an advanced review, state of mind. And I actually got to go on the day after because John had an asthma attack after the reviews came out, and I had to do the next 4 performances, until we closed. So it was interesting. And I went on. I get there. I'm in a big Broadway theater, and I always, because I had all my little bugs and robots set because I had a whole bunch of little parts that I did. I was like the company stuntman, because I was very lithe and in shape, and young and stupid. So I would do anything. I did backflips off of platforms and stuff like that, which I can't do now. And I couldn't do in rehearsal. I could only do in performance, I swear, but I'm sitting there and I always used to get there an hour early, and I would do a bunch of tumbling exercises on an empty stage to get to get warmed up. And suddenly Frank Marino, who is the production stage manager for it, goes up and goes, "Hey, Keith, how you doing? Are you ready?" And I look at him like, "Frank, you've been working with me for a month at this point, and I'm always ready and I'm always here early." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh my God, you don't know? No one's told you." I go, "Told you what?" He says, "You're on tonight. You're going to be Lord Cumulus. That's the lead role." And I went, "Oh my God!" And I never had done it on the Broadway set. I'd never done that part. I knew all the lines, but I'd never done the part. So I went in there and I did it. And John's sister, Cordis Hurd, now Cordis Hurd, who's Cordis Fire at the time, Fejer, that was her married name. She was my first sort of affair, and she had broken it off with me when we'd gone to New York. So I had to go through this thing and make out with her, and she led me by the nose, thank God, through the whole thing, but it was an interesting experience, and we both made it through it. Let me put it that way, But that was my Broadway debut,
Oh wow, that's so cool! Imagine being just flung into that, just unaware,
flung into the deep end, so to speak, and
yeah.
But that's always been my case. I always was a kid that wanted to jump in the deep end. I've jumped out of perfectly good airplanes. I scuba dive. I rock climb. I don't do the rock climbing or the parachuting so much anymore, but I still scuba dive, that, and I date actresses, which is probably the most dangerous thing of all. And they probably say the same about me, right?
And to speak on your scuba diving, some things fans might not know about you is that you have interest in scuba diving, softball, hiking, mountain biking, cooking, and playwriting. So how did that all get introduced into your life?
It just keeps being part of what I always did, starting in, at the Jesuit boarding school I went to. I played Little League Baseball. Before that, my dad played minor league baseball in the St. Louis Browns organization, which is, I think now they're the Baltimore Orioles, but I'm not sure. They changed their names a couple times. But he played in Port Hudson, Louisiana Class D League right before World War II, and then in Jackson, Mississippi Class B League. He went from $65 a month to $265, which at the time was a lot of money to be paid in 1941 at 20 years old. And but then in June of 1941, the people who ran the St. Louis Browns organization said to him, we believe you're a major league prospect. And there was a thing called national service at the time that if you went into it, you served 15 months and then you couldn't be drafted again after that. So they said, we want you to go in and do this national service and do your 15 months. We don't think there's going to be a war. All right. So he did it. And so much for the geopolitical acumen of people who run Major League Baseball. There was a war that happened in December of 1941, if you recall. Pearl Harbor was bombed, and we went in and fought both the Japanese and the Germans. And my dad actually went over in January of 1942 on the Queen Mary with all 15,000 men and no tanks or guns in the middle of the night alone, because it was the fastest ship afloat. And they went over from New York Harbor, a blacked out New York Harbor, through U-boat infested waters to Derry, or as the British call it, Londonderry, Northern Ireland, where they became part of the garrison troops there. And we had no guns, no tanks, no everything. And one night there was an alarm that the German raiders were on the beach. All right, these are the German version of Navy SEALs. All right, are on the beach. So they all got rousted down. They didn't have any guns, so they're running down the beach, with nothing. And suddenly he realizes, I don't have a weapon. What am I going to do? These guys are like, they're commandos. So what he did is he reached down and picked up 2 rocks and ran on. And that's why we won World War II, because of an attitude like that. Whether it's stupidity or just plain old bravery or a combination of both, that's why we won.
Combination of both, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then he fought, in North Africa and Italy, and they offered a commission as a major in the occupation force in Germany, but he just decided to go home, and he was in a Pathfinder unit. He'd seen all sorts of stuff. I actually wrote a play about it called Travelogue, which is visiting Italy with my then fiancée, who's now the mother of my children, and my ex-wife, but in 1992 when the lira was still in effect. And it's kind of a metaphysical play, because my dad's ghost starts appearing to my character, the avatar for my character, and ends up taking me, because he doesn't approve of the trip that I'm taking. He says, I'll show you what Italy's really like, and started taking me to all his battlefields. And actually, by the end, I'm actually in battle with him, and it ends up at the American battlefield at Nettuno, Italy, which is where the Battle of Anzio and landings at Anzio and Nettuno took place. And it's a very moving experience amongst the thousands of crosses that are there, But so I write to make sense of all that, and as I said, my dad he played baseball, and he was what they called a pathfinder, for an armored regiment. So they would go way out ahead of the main units, and he said, he told me once about, they were sitting in an olive grove. They had 2 Jeeps and a half-track. There's 10 of them, and their lieutenant, and they're sitting there, and they watched the entire Hermann Goering division, all 10,000 of them, with how many tanks they had and armored vehicles drive by. And he and his colleagues wanted to start shooting, his comrades in arms. But the lieutenant said, first one of you that fires a shot, I'm going to shoot him. The Germans will take care of the rest. So they just sat there in silence and watched the old Hermann Goering division go past, But so I have that blood in me. What can I say?
Yeah, that's what writing does for me too. I have a journal to just like write down how I'm feeling, or when I'm writing music or trying to make music, I write that down to try and make sense of everything and the stuff that goes on around me, because it helps me when I'm.
It helps. I got to tell you, yeah. I journaled for a long time. Now I just write. I don't journal, as much as I used to. But I journaled every day for, oh my God, 17 years. From when I was like 16 or 17, maybe 18 until I was in my mid 30s. And one of the reasons I stopped was because my girlfriend at the time would read all my journals and get mad at me when she read them. So I started lying to my journals because I didn't want her to get mad at me, for whatever it was that I wrote. Like I was going, oh, I miss so-and-so, an old girlfriend. I wish I could talk to her, blah, 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 things like that, and then she would, she was actually with me, this woman who's actually a very well-known actress now. I don't know if I should say her name or not. And I was shooting a movie in the former Yugoslavia, and we were in Beograd, in Belgrade, and I was shooting all day, and she was in my hotel room. And everything was fine when I left in the morning. When I came back at night, she was flipping out. She was drinking heavily. She was like biting her nails to the quick. And it turned out she had read my journal in which I had said that I'd missed this former girlfriend whom I'd been with for 4.5 years prior to her, and so that freaked her out, and she never let me live that down after that. But whatever, it's romance. Like I said, dating actresses, kind of a dangerous sport,
Oh my god. But my first question to you is, what is one word you would use to describe your childhood?
Describe my childhood? Privileged. Honestly, I am a product of white privilege. My dad, as I said, was a minor political, and he and my uncle owned a savings and loan in which we were in a small blue collar industrial town, outside of Chicago, which was very segregated. It was like, black people worked for us, but black people, and I played Little League with him. My dad was instrumental in making sure that the Little League was integrated. And also he was president of the school board, and all the public schools were integrated as well, in Summit, but black people lived west of Archer and south of 63rd Street, and white people lived north of 63rd Street and east of Archer, and that was just the way it was. And I'm sorry to say that's the truth, And I also, although we stayed in that town because my dad was, as I said, a politician in the town, my mother always wanted to move elsewhere, and we belonged to country clubs, and I went to expensive boarding school. So yes, I would say my childhood was very privileged. I am a product of white privilege, and I have that same white fragility that we all have, though I am indeed a diehard, liberal, and will fight to the death, for the rights of people, of all colors to have every opportunity possible, because that's what my dad believed in, and that's what I believe in, and that's what my sons believe in as well,
That's good, because it's true when they said that racism isn't like programmed into you, it's taught by your actions and the environment that you're raised in. And I'm glad that you're not. I believe.
Go ahead. Finish.
I was gonna say I'm glad that you're not from that environment that you were raised in, and you broke from. Because you did say you're kind of like this diehard Republican, and then you became.
I was. It's like I actually, in my 6th grade class at the military school I went to, it was 6th or 7th grade. It was it was a 64 election. I did the political organization for it and campaigned. We had a mock election, and out of 36 kids in the class, I got 34 of them to vote for Barry Goldwater. So that's who I was. But then I changed from that. And believe me, I was a political operative, all through I ran a committee called Artists in Action, made up of writers and theater artists, in New York City, that we worked for the Mondale campaign and the Dukakis campaign, and other campaigns, registering and doing Get Out the Vote drives. So, I hope I've made up for it,
And it sounds like you're doing a great job, and I'm really glad that you're passing off positive traits to the generation after.
Well, and the thing is, the one thing that I have is for our country, because I think we are deeply, deeply divided, and there's a T-shirt that I bought from Stephen Colbert that says, "United." Well, usually it says, "United we stand, divided we fall." Well, Stephen's T-shirt that he sold was, "United we stand, divided we fall" is crossed out. So I think that that's the truth. United we stand, divided right now. But I think the great hope for us is that amongst the overwhelming percentage of young people your age and my son's age, you know, and my, I mean, the young actors in my theater, you know, where I've been, you know, artistic director for the last 6.5 years, and I'm stepping away now so that young people can have an opportunity, you know, because it's like time for the young people to take over. I'll still do stuff, but time for the young people to take over. And I think that they're the hope of this nation, because I do believe that they have been raised, for the most part, I mean, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, but that they have been raised with the idea that color is not any kind of barrier to doing anything. All right. And that, you know, you should have no more prejudice against someone for the color of their skin than you should for the color of their hair or their eyes, you know. And that's the belief I was raised in by my dad and my mom, you know. And John Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were my great heroes, and Malcolm X too, you know. So
Malcolm X. My question, well, I'm trying to figure out, I can't segue to that. That's a deep conversation. I love these deep philosophical conversations. That's what I'm all about. I love learning and growing and learning what you have to say. That's why I love doing interviews, just learning people's stories and getting their perspective on certain topics and issues. And of course,
don't think that I don't make mistakes. All right.
Oh no, I mean, we're all human. I mean, we are, of course.
And I have, you know, I made a mistake this year, you know, in a diversity training class at my theater, you know, session, and they're talking. We have a thing called a playwrights unit, which is, we're a new play development company, and that's where the new plays come from, or from the playwrights unit, from people who write plays. So of course they have kind of a hegemony, you know, on what's being done in the play, and in the theater, you know, and a lot of people were resentful of that. So they formed a new playwrights unit, you know, which was for under 30s, which I was all for, you know, but at 30 they age out, and then many of them weren't happy joining the playwrights unit, you know, because they felt like a fish out of water in many ways, because they had been in a more you know, in the playwrights unit, we believe that it's like, if you can't take the criticism in the playwrights unit, you're not going to be able to take the criticism when people begin to review your plays, or audiences begin to come and watch them. So it's best to get it out while we're in a lab, you know. And then they said, we want to form a third unit for people who don't want to be in the playwrights unit, but have left the young playwrights unit, or, you know, and don't feel comfortable. And I go, well, okay, I'm all for that, but what I'm worried is, and I use the term, I'm worried about them being ghettoized, you know, in this unit. And by that I didn't mean that, and I know it was a wrong word to use. What I meant was, I didn't want them to be cut off and shunted off to the side, or put into a separate but equal sort of environment, you know. But not that I was afraid that they would begin speaking Ebonics or anything like that. That wasn't it at all. In fact, I treasure that sort of writing, you know. But it's just, I didn't want them to feel that they were into a cul-de-sac, you know, into a false premise. And it was a mistake on my part, you know, and I freely admit to it, and hope that by my actions I'm able to make up for, you know, faux pas like that. Because we do it, but we sometimes don't realize the affect of our words, and words do have consequences, you know.
Absolutely.
Sorry to get too deep there. You know,
like I said, I'm all for it, and I love it. It's what I love about interviews. It makes them juicy. I love it. But obviously you started acting in high school, so I wanted to ask you, in one point in high school did you realize that in what point in your life did you realize that the entertainment industry was the right industry for you?
It was probably, you know, I had 2 years at I had done theater at Campion, but minor roles, but it was fun, you know. And as I left there in my junior year because of we had a very liberal sort of administration at the boarding school I went to up until my junior year, and then they brought in a very conservative administration who then, you know, cracked down on me. And because I was the #1 scholarship student at the school, the principal just demanded everything out of me, and I ended up getting 15 demerits, you know, which you got a demerit for things like not making your bed or being late for class, you know, over a period of 3 months, you know, and if you accrued under this administration, if you accrued 15 demerits, you know, in the space of 3 months, you got what they called the paddle, which was 15 swats on the ass with a paddle ball paddle. And I can tell you, I got it. And I stood up. My roommate, my classmates called me the Purple Haze for about 6 weeks because my ass cheeks were purple for like 6 weeks afterwards, you know. And I got knocked over the prefect's bed when I got hit too, because I was little, you know. And but then I got 5 more demerits over the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and they wanted to give it to me again at 20. And I called my parents, and they came up and told them what had happened. And they came up there. My dad almost punched out the principal. He reached across his desk and was going to just knock him around. So he said, "You can't do this to children," you know. And so they took me out of the school, and I ended up going back to a public high school. And I could have graduated in that public high school at the end of my junior year. I had 1 credit that I needed, you know, because I'd been in a very advanced, intense academic situation at the Jesuit boarding school I went to. But I was having so much fun. I'd started acting, all right, in my junior year there. I had so much fun. I just didn't want to leave. So I stayed. And they made it like the Keith Szarabajka Repertory Company. I did Murray Burns in A Man for All Seasons. I did Grandpa Vanderhoff and You Can't Take It With You. I played Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons and Finian and Finian's Rainbow. Plus I danced and sang my way to the hearts of hundreds in 3 different musicals, you know, as a chorus member. And I just had the best time. And I'd gotten into that because at the beginning of my second junior year, when I went to this public school, I made a point because we moved from the small suburb that my dad had been a Politico in to a much bigger suburb because of a political scandal, which I wrote a play about as well, that my parents were party to. And so we moved there, and I had the choice of like, am I going to be a really good goody two shoes, or am I going to like start hanging out with the really fun people? And I ended up hanging out with the really fun people, and I actually got suspended from school in like November of my junior year in the fall for cutting class too often and going and smoking dope and having breakfast with friends of mine, you know, during third hour, which was when I had a French class. And she was a wonderful woman, the teacher, Mrs. Scudda, but it was boring, you know, let me face it. And it was much more interesting to go out and get high and have a nice breakfast, you know, with my friends, do whatever it is we were going to do. So I got suspended, and I pretended to be my dad when the dean of students called, you know, to tell him that I was suspended. So my voice was deep enough then to pass. And but then when I got back out from being suspended, I was actually offered, you know, he said, you're gonna flunk this French class, so you need to get out of it and go into some other class. And I said, well, what else is available? And they go, well, there's this acting class, you know, 3rd period. And I went and I looked at the names of some of the students that were in it, and there are a bunch of hot girls that I knew. So I go, I'm going for that, you know, and I did. And it took off from there. And it became, you know, to where I suddenly, this is what I wanted to do. You know, I knew at 17 I was going to be, you know, after I'd done Murray Burns and won the Best Actor Award my junior year ahead of all the seniors in the school, I knew that I was going to be an actor, and that's what I wanted to be. Let me put it that way. And they afforded me the training in this incredible sort of season I had the next year to do all that. And I got a scholarship a theater scholarship to Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. And I went there for a semester and almost got into a movie, Badlands, because Terrence Malick came through, and I was one of the people that he read, you know, for the lead in it. But I didn't get hired. You know, he took me to dinner, which was really nice of him. And he sent me a postcard 6 weeks later saying that he wanted to hire me, but they made him hire a professional in Hollywood who happened to be Martin Sheen, which, like, I don't feel so bad losing to Martin Sheen, you know. And I ended up doing 2 movies with Sissy Spacek after that, because she was in you know, 10 years later. But that's still, you know, neither here nor there. I did Missing in Marie with her later. So I would have had a triumvirate if I had actually done Badlands with her, but didn't get the chance, you know. But that's kind of how and then I got hired by Stuart Gordon at the Organic Theater in June of 1972. After I'd seen a production of Death of a Salesman with one of my high school drama teachers and my sister and one of my buddies, and we'd gone from the theater department, and we went, and I was just so moved by this performance watching Jack Warden do Willie Loman, and I didn't want to become one of his sons, like Biff and Hap, and so it was a 5:00 like late matinee performance. It was over by 7:30, and I dropped and I suddenly had this voice that said into me, "You have got to go now if you're going to be an actor. I swear to God, go now." And so I dropped everybody off, drove my company car because I was working as a materials analyst, field and lab technician for a construction consulting firm, and I drove down to Lincoln Avenue in Chicago, or to the Body Politic, where I'd seen a great production of Poe the year before, and went, "Oh my God, I want to work with these people." And I parked there, and it was like I was in a dream. And I suddenly woke up in front of the theater as the play was letting out, and I suddenly go, "Oh my God, what the fuck am I doing here?" And I'm leaning my head against a light pole and banging it on there, saying, "I've got to stop smoking pot. I just have got to stop smoking pot." And I feel this little tap on my shoulder. I turn around, this short guy looks up at me and goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, "You sure?" I go, yeah. He says, "Well, can I help you?" And I go, "Are you looking for anyone?" I go, yeah, I'm looking for someone. And he goes, "Well, who?" And he says, "Stuart Gordon." And I go, I didn't know who he was, and I go, I don't know. And he goes, "Lenny Kleinfeld, who had happened to write this play Warp, that was being done at the time." And I go, "No, I don't know him." And he goes, "Zazu Pitts." And I go, "That's the one, take me in to see her." So he brings me, he goes, "Okay." And he brings me in, and there's this big sort of rug colored room. It was very hippie time. It was 1972. And it was all these multicolored pieces of rug all over the ceiling and floor and walls, and he turns around and he goes, it was called the rug room, obviously, and he goes, it was sort of the anteroom to the backstage, and he goes, "So do you he says, look, Zazu Pitts isn't here." He goes, "My name is Bill Norris." And I go, yeah, I kind of figured that. He goes, "My name is Bill Norris." He says, "Well, what's yours?" And I go, "Keith Szarabajka." And he goes, "I'll just call you Keith if you don't mind." He said, "Keith, why are you here?" I said, "Well, I'm home from college for the summer, and I just was looking to do some volunteer work, because in community theater, or whatever, and because I've been involved, as an actor, and I'm studying theater." And he goes, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah." And he's looking me over, and I was in really good shape. I had long blonde hair, and I was running 4 miles a day, swimming, 1,000 yards a day. I would do 35 pull-ups and 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups every day. I was buff, and tanned, because I just been in Texas and I was working outdoors all summer, and in construction. And he goes, and he looks me up and down. He goes, "Do you know what play we're doing right now?" And I go, "No." He goes, "It's called Warp. It's about a superhero who saves the universe." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "Have you ever acted?" And I go, yeah. And I said, high school, community, and theater, and college, and he goes, "Far out. I have somebody," and he goes, do you know this play, Warp?" I go, "No." He goes, "But friends of mine saw it back, like a couple months ago, and said it was really funny. There was this little Woody Allen guy running around saving the universe and fighting all these evil villains, and they said it was so much fun that, and you should really be high when you go to see it, and he goes, "That was me. I was stepping in. I was actually playing the part back then 2 months ago, He said, but he played a different part, and John Hurd had wanted to leave, so I didn't know that then. So he goes, "I have someone I want you to meet." So he brings me to the door of the green room and knocks on the door, and the door opens, and this huge cloud of marijuana smoke comes billowing out, and Stuart Gordon, who looked like Jerry Garcia with this big sort of afro type of hairdo, and a beard and little glasses, wire rim glasses, is looking, and he looks at Norris, and he looks at me, and he goes like, and then he looks at Norris like, "What the fuck are you bringing your tricks back here for me for?" And he goes, and Bill goes, "Stuart Gordon, this is Keith." I can't pronounce his last name. "Keith wants to audition for the role of Lord Cumulus in Warp." And Stuart looked at me, and he goes, "Far out. Come back tomorrow night with a prepared 2-minute Shakespearean reading." And he goes, and he turns around and walks, and then he turns around and he goes, "Oh yeah, and make it something militant." So to make a long story short, I did that. I got hired. It was as if some being had brought me there, and I have been going at it ever since. Of course, John decided to stay after I got hired, so they asked me if I would stay on, and do all the shit work basically, and understudy him. And I said, I was 19. I went, fuck yeah, this is my shot. And this play, it went to Broadway, and I've been friends with people in the organic ever since. Stuart passed away last March 20, not this, but a year ago, March 25th, during COVID, though not from COVID, he's been part of my life, and all the people in the organic they're like my other family, So it's been a terrific thing. In fact, the house I live in now is owned by Joe Mantegna, who was an organic member and is a very close friend of mine,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool how everything is all connected in your life.
It's all connected. I can tell you, you can't lie about it, because what you find out is that everybody knows everybody, and even in this day and age, they know even more. So you better just be telling the truth. So, it used to be, you faked it till you make it. You still do it, but you fake it till you make it. But, just try to tell the truth, because that's what this is all about. This business is trying to tell the emotional truth as you see it in the moment.
Obviously, as we're talking, you come from a theater background, you've been in movies, like I said in the beginning, like Dark Knight and Argo, which we're going to get into, but you've also done a lot of voiceover work. How did that get introduced to you, coming from that sort of theater live action background?
Well, when I moved to New York with Bleacher Bums, which I was one of the authors of, and I stayed in New York because the girl I'd been dating broke my heart, and I couldn't go back to Chicago. I mean, oddly enough, I just couldn't be in the city anymore, and so I know I'm a sap, but it's our place.
Hey, we're the same.
But it kept me in New York, and I got an agent with Bleacher Bums, and casting directors knew who I was, so I was getting a lot of attention, and people wanted to work with me, so I stayed, and I starved pretty much for 4 years. I mean, I worked, but I starved, and then when I started, I started hitting about, I did a couple movies early on, and a bunch of off Broadway and off Broadway theater stuff, and worked in restaurants for a couple of years until I finally just went, I can't work in restaurants anymore, even though I loved cooking, and I still do, I just, people started asking me to go, we have such a great voice. Why don't you do this? So I had an agent who started sending me up for voiceover. So I started getting it. And then suddenly I started hitting on some of the stuff, and I got into audiobooks by one of the people in my building where I lived at 92nd and Riverside, 194 Riverside Drive. I lived in the basement apartment there that I was really cheap, and it was like $650 a month for a 3-bedroom with an eating kitchen. It was dark, but it was perfect for a theater actor to live in, because you could sleep all day, so it was great. And I got broken into like 6 times, but that was a whole nother story. But the guy who in fact, I once had a cop come in, the detective, after he goes, he says, look, don't tell anybody I tell you this, but you need to get yourself a gun. All right. And don't get a shotgun, because that way you won't shoot your neighbors through the walls, and I went, oh boy, okay. I guess I live in a dangerous neighborhood, which is actually very not dangerous, but at the time the Upper West Side was kind of the Upper Wild West Side, in the 80s and early 90s and late 70s. But so anyway, the guy who lived in that same building ran Symphony Space, and he ran a program called Selected Shorts. His name was Isaiah Sheffer, and he had seen me in a couple plays, and he knew that I was an actor, and he said, will you come and do a Selected Shorts for us? And at Symphony Space, which is basically reading a short story, on radio and being recorded in front of a live audience, And I thought, I go over there. It was February, and it was a rainy, kind of sleety night and cold. And I go over there at 6:30, because it was like 2 blocks from where I lived. And I went over there and did a sound check, and we did a little quick run through. And then I went back home and ate dinner. I'm going, this is going to be nothing. I come back at 10 to 8, for an 8:15 curtain or 8 o'clock curtain, whatever it was. And people were hanging from the rafters to do this. It was just It was packed, and it was like I went out and I did the gig. I was nervous as could be because I didn't realize it was going to be that many people. You know, it was just you and the script and a light and then the audience, you know, and a microphone, you know, and it was I felt like I was a rock star. You know, the people were cheering and they were clapping and laughing, and I was going, oh my God, this is like when I was tap dancing back when I was 4 years old, you know, with my cousin Joyce, and it was really fun. And it turns out that for a lot, and I did selected shorts for 28 years after that. Even when I was out, moved to LA, I would still do it because they would come out and do it at the Getty, and I would do it for Isaiah. He passed away like 3 or 4 years ago, though, unfortunately. So not happening anymore. But it was a great gig, and but it turns out that a lot of creative directors for ad agencies and for like people who read books come to these selected short things. And I started getting all sorts of audiobook and cartoon stuff out of that, you know, and gradually it grew, you know, and I didn't do any video games till I moved to LA, but since I did my first one, it was, I don't know, Strike America or something it was called. I played Boris Yeltsin in it with a Russian accent, you know, and I was a drunken Boris Yeltsin. And that was my first one that I ever did. And I've probably done about 100 video games since then, you know, and a couple hundred cartoons and about 100 audiobooks as well, you know.
That's like, it's so cool when I hear how like,
well, that's not for everybody, audiobooks, I can tell you, but it's really fun, you know, for me.
That's what I hear a lot about, like audiobooks. People on, I don't know if you're on any social media. I don't think you are, but
I'm on Facebook.
Okay, you're on Facebook. Okay,
I'm an old guy. Come on, I'm on Facebook. You know, it's like I don't really I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use it because it was Donald Trump's thing as far as I was concerned, so I just stayed away from it, you know.
Yeah, no, but well, he got banned off of there, so that's not his thing anymore.
Yeah, well, good. Well, they're thinking of bringing him back, I heard, you know.
Yeah, he's trying to make his own website or whatever. It's a mess. It's a whole mess, but yeah. It's just so cool hearing people how they come from like the theater background into voiceover, because like voiceover is like a whole other beast to deal with. Even though it's not TV.
It is. It's a whole different beast, and I know that there are people who just purely do voiceover, but I do voiceover, I do theater, I do TV, I do video games, I do audiobooks, you know, and I do movies, you know, and I love doing it all. And I write, and I'm learning to direct right now. I've led a group of COVID-bound writers, you know, for my theater company, and we wrote a new science fiction epic adventure sort of serial. It's a comedic one called In Search of a Pig, a pandemic immunity generator, you know, and it's about the Captain Dakota James, who's the Amelia Earhart of space, and her second in command, onboard mechanic and therapeutic sex partner Fred, you know, and their French accented snarky artificial intelligence Cherie, who are out fighting pandemic in the universe in the year 2035, and we've written 6 episodes of it, and we just completed recording the 3rd one, and I'm just finishing editing the first one, and I'm about to finish editing the second one. We're going to release the 2 of them shortly, but we're not sure where yet. Do you have a good plan for that? I was going to do it through my theater's website, but I'm not going to anymore. I want to do it on its own sort of channel, you know. Maybe StreamYard is it?
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah, we want to put up a paywall because it costs money to do these things, you know. And YouTube, you can't monetize it until you have over 1,000 followers for a year or something on YouTube. I think they don't let you have ads attached. At least that's the way I understand it. Perhaps I don't understand it completely. We're going to figure out a way to put it out there. So just look for it. In Search of a Pig. All right. Episode 1, The Farce Awakens, you know.
That's gonna be cool. One role that I really want to talk to you about, and was how I was first introduced to you as a creative, was in the Transformers video games as Ironhide. And I am a Transformers freak. Like, I love Transformers so much. I live and breathe it. I love the movies, even though some of them has been very hit and very miss. And I just, I saw that. We're gonna get into it because you were also in the movies. I'm gonna show one of my favorite clips that you starred in a few, but I want to talk about Ironhide real quick because I just love your portrayal of that character. And Ironhide is just such a dope Autobot to me. Like, I love what he transforms into. I love what he's about. He comes from sort of this like military, like rough and tough like character, and I just love Ironhide. So before I talk about the character himself, what was your history with the Transformers franchise before coming on and doing the voices?
I mean, I used to watch the Transformers and there was also a show called Beast Wars that was a sort of a precursor to it. That was I think a Canadian thing, that had all that Transformer stuff in it, and they actually then Beast Wars became. And I think it became Transformers, if I'm not mistaken.
Transformers. It was Transformers.
For some reason in my head, there's a relationship between Beast Wars and Transformers in my watching of it. I may be wrong about that.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, there is. There's a ton of connection, but Transformers G1 came first, and then Beast Wars came after. So that's why
it came in. I started watching Beast Wars first, and then I watched Transformers. So which was a lot of fun, And I've actually become friendly with Peter Cullen, who plays Optimus Prime. He hangs out at one of the places that I hang out at, and at the Smokehouse, which I will in Burbank, give them a little plug, across the street from Warner Brothers Studios. But yeah,
Seriously?
Peter Cullen. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But that's sort of my Cheers bar there,
That's so awesome. I love Peter Cullen. But he also voiced Ironhide in the original cartoon. That was
yes, he did. And he used to accuse me of copying him, which I did, Though I always wanted to do Optimus Prime.
Hey, listen, I want you to do Optimus Prime. You hear me? Whoever is watching this, please get Keith to do Optimus Prime. Like, I need that, like, deep.
Once Peter's done, and hopefully he won't be done for a while. Although, he's not. None of us are getting any younger. Let me put it that way.
He talks about how he wants his own solo movie before his time comes, and I really want him to get one. Like, he deserves it. He's been a part of this franchise since the very beginning, and they keep making like Bumblebee. Like, even though Bumblebee's cool, I just wish that he deserves his spotlight. So
yeah, well, he does. Well, he still does. He still does Optimus Prime though in the movie.
Yep, till this very day.
Yeah. But in the movies, they didn't have me do Ironhide in the movies. They had me do. I did Lazerbeak. In which was really. It was actually one of my favorite parts I've ever had to do. It really was. Cherry, you were always my favorite.
Oh, goosebumps! I'm definitely gonna get into Lazerbeak.
What's his name? Ken Jeong, who played the scientist who I kill him in that. And I also my favorite thing that I ever got to do was to kill John Malkovich, in Transformers, Dark of the Moon. It was I go, oh my God, I get to kill John Malkovich. This is the best thing on earth. It's not being John Malkovich, my movie. It'll be killing John Malkovich. That's what we'll call it.
But to talk more about Ironhide,
I knew John from Chicago, from the Off Loop Theater in Chicago, where he started. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was in a company called Steppenwolf, and I was in the Organic Theater Company, which was the theater company at the time. And Steppenwolf kind of came up as we all started to leave, and moved to New York and LA. So, and Steppenwolf became the preeminent theater company in Chicago, and still and is now. They're sort of, it's like on Broadway in Chicago. They have a huge Broadway type theater with 3 different theaters in it. It's gorgeous. They've become the thing. And Malkovich is still attached to it. They're still, but and I lived with Laurie Metcalf for 3 years, who you may know as well. She lived with me actually in New York, but that was. So I became pretty well acquainted with a lot of the Steppenwolf people, like John.
But to go back, I love what you did with those video games. Was so masterful and so cool. How did you create the voice for Ironhide?
I just went and used my deeper voice, kind of like this, and made him a little tougher, And we had direction. I mean, and Keith Aram of PCB Productions was the guy who hired me for that and directed me, and I did a lot of work for him, like Darksiders 1 and 2, you know, and I don't know what I did a couple others for him. Haven't done anything for him recently, but great guy. He has his own studio in his home, beautiful place in Encino. You know, it's the studio is just like, oh my God, like state of the art. You know, I have a little closet that's lined with pyramid char graphite foam. You know, and I do my work, and I can do my work in there. You know, and I have all the setup. But his is a real studio. His studio is as big as my house. So
have you worked with Steve Bloom before?
With who?
Steve Bloom.
I know the name, but I you know, when you work in this stuff, unless you're actually, you know, in a cartoon, you usually are working with, you know, at least a couple people. You know, it depends on with whom you're working, what company you're working for. But when you do the video games, you're almost always all by yourself, except which was a big except was like when I did L.A. Noire and Deep Space 1 and 2 and 3 and Halo 4, because those were motion capture jobs. So you actually worked like you were shooting a movie in those, you know, although you're dressed, you know, in tights with little fluorescent dots attached everywhere, you know. And then you look at yourself and go, I look like a total geek, you know, in this. And then you'd step into the volume and I could still see it. And I'd become this 20-foot tall alien, you know, who talked like, we are forerunners, guardians of all that exists.
But the reason I asked that was if you work with Steve Bloom, because he has a studio that's massive. I mean, he's one of the world's most well-known voice actors. It's just huge, and if you see it, it's like voice actors have described as like he could really get people in and out if he wanted to. That's how big and massive it is. So it's just really cool to hear like how these creatives have their own massive like cool studio, because I've seen some voice actors studios or what they record in, and it's kind of like a square, or they have like something you were describing, a closet where they go in and they open and record and stuff, or they have a whisper box and they go inside and talk, and it's just really cool to see all that stuff.
Well, I don't have a whisper box. I have a 4x4 by 7.5 foot tall, you know, closet that I made into a booth, you know, and it works. So it's whatever, you know. Sorry, this friend of mine wants me to go hiking with him, and I have to tell him I'm in this.
That voice is just really cool at how you created and made it so deep, and you're really well known for like a lot of your deep voices. Of course, you played the Didact in Halo 4, if I'm correct, and done a ton of things for like Mass Effect and COD, which
I was a Harbinger in Mass Effect 2, and then they put him in 3 too. They wasn't originally in 3, but people said, where's the Harbinger? So they ended up putting him back in. So it was whatever. And I you know, I can't say other things that I'm in because I can't talk about them. You have signed NDAs.
That NDA, yep. The NDAs are crazy. I was talking to another voice actor. He was talking about how like NDA he signed said if he broke it, he would have to pay $1 million. So that would be a large deterrent if he couldn't. I mean, who has
they don't pay you $1 million. So I don't know where the fuck they're gonna get the $1 million. You know.
I know these. I was about to say, I don't think anyone has that money to be giving away.
Maybe Peter Cullen does, or Steve Bloom, but I don't. You know, hey, I make a living. I've always made a living as an actor. You know, I've never made a killing. You know, but I put both my sons through college, and you know, without debt, you know, for them. So you know, they're growing up privileged as well. I'm sorry to say, but you know. But I'm glad I was able to do that for him. Let me put it that way. You know,
no, that's awesome.
You said you're in class. Where are you in class, Josh?
Class? Oh, I'm not in class. Well, I graduate high school soon, so I graduate the 28th, and I'm going to be crying like a little girl. I know I will, because it's the end. It's really the end of the era.
You should. I cried at my kids graduated from preschool. That's I'm a softie.
Preschool, oh my god. Yeah, no, I remember I cried during my elementary school graduation, but it's like we're going to the same school. I don't know why. I'm gonna see y'all in 2 months. Why am I crying? But like for high school, like we're going places. A lot of my friends are going to like Tennessee. A couple of them going to Utah. Like they're going all over the place. One of them is going to like a military college in like Virginia. He committed for that.
On the VMI.
That is the exact one. You named it. And
that's a real military school. That's, you know, you can graduate just like graduating from West Point if you go to VMI.
My friends are going to West Point too. Like I have a lot of my friends who are joining. A lot of my friends are joining the military, which is
where let me ask, what state are you in?
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Are you in Atlanta?
Yeah, outside.
Okay, cool.
But that's so. Yeah, I know a lot of.
I've only been in the airport though, you know, and
but yeah,
a huge airport. By the way, I felt like I was a byte in a computer moving through.
Oh,
you know?
The airport here is massive like that because there's a whole community here that is just dedicated to like airport people. Like they make a lot of money because they're Delta pilots. Like a lot of my friends have Delta pilot parents, and it's really insane how like important air travel is around here. Even though my mom,
it's a major hub, you know,
huge.
Isn't it the biggest in the U.S. now? It used to be the busiest. Hartsfield, isn't it the busiest one in the U.S. now? Used to be O'Hare outside Chicago, but I think it's Hartsfield now. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But I grew up originally in Jamaica, Queens, New York. So I moved down here 2013. But I miss New York. I don't miss the rats, but I miss the place, the scenery. The rats were huge.
I miss New York too. I lived there for 15 years, and I loved living in New York. I would have never leave, but my now ex-wife wanted to leave there. She was born and raised there, so she wanted, you know, grass is always greener on the other side. She wanted to move out here, you know. So we did. You know, and now both my children were born out here, and they went to school here, and you know, they've grown up here, and so now I'm here. You know.
But to go back to the Transformers thing, for Ironhide, he was in War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, and Rise of the Darkspark. What was your favorite moment playing the character?
You know what? I hate to disappoint you, Josh, but I don't remember doing specific moments. I remember doing the parts, you know, but it's like, as I said, I've done over 100 video games, and Lazerbeak I remember really, really clearly because it was in a movie and I got to kill John Malkovich and Ken Jeong, you know, but you know, it was I was by myself. I was working with Keith Aram, you know, and it was fun, you know. We did this stuff. I did you know, you'd work 3-4 hour sessions, you know, and I did a number of them for each, you know, and it was a fun job, you know. That's all I can say. I wish I could tell you more. I can't, because all you do is read lines. When you're doing these things, you're not seeing the visuals. They show you a picture of what your character looks like, but you're not actually seeing, you're not matching things, you know, unless they have a particular sort of like they have, I guess they have like in between playing sequences, they have like sort of movie-like sequences. Those are the only times you actually ever see anything, and those are more like you're doing ADR, you know, automated digital dialogue replacement, you know. So you're actually seeing that, but other than that, you don't actually get to see what you're doing. All you do is you record the lines, and then later, when if you do get to see the game, you know, there used to be, they used to send you all the games. Now they don't, you know. Cheap bastards, you know.
Well, then let's dive right into Lazerbeak, which is a character I really loved your portrayal of, and I'm going to pull up my favorite clip that you did.
Believe me, I know what you're going to. Oh, there he is.
I don't know him. I would never say anything. Okay. Satellite, just like I promised. I put a blind spot on the program as a bonus. What more do you want from me?
Jerry, you are my favorite.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
I know, but my superiors need me to.
Please, you don't have to do
Suicide you.
don't have to.
What did you say to Witwicky?
Oh, shit! Who wants some chicken dinner now, bitch? Cause somebody messed with the wrong wank today. Come on! You want some of me?
And off he goes. All right. I don't think anyone was surprised.
Fun, wasn't it? That was fun. I'm sorry Lazerbeak died. That's all. You know, I would love for that character to have continued on forever. I actually really doing. Yeah. And I also liked it because it was a different voice than the usual sort of deep voice that I do.
I got to do this kind of voice. Cherry, you were always my favorite.
Oh, I love that voice. I really love your portrayal of Lazerbeak. And when it comes to me and just the live action movies in general, when I say they've been hit or miss, like I said a few minutes ago, I'm a huge G1 fan, and I'm very much of the adaptations. When you adaptate something like cartoons and anime, I'm just really keen to the source material. And you know, Lazerbeak never spoke before, but I was really surprised by how much I really loved your performance. And bravo you, like you really did such a fantastic job, really knocked it out of the park. And I really loved that, like that your voice, like it's so cool. It gave me goosebumps when you did it live. I just love it. And you know, Lazerbeak fit really well into the story, and I'm really glad that they didn't just like shoehorn him in, but he he filled his role. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but he filled his role in the story perfect. Like when he was turned into the Bumblebee, the little Bumblebee action figure, you remember, and he was hanging out with the girl and transformed and killed the father, and he was like, just visiting, and then flew away. And it's so cool. What do you remember the most? What is the most memorable moment, either recording for the character or just doing the whole process in general?
No, you know, honestly, the only process that I had was a 2-hour and 15-minute voiceover session with what's his name?
Michael Bay.
Bay, yeah, you know, and it was intense. You know, I'll say that. I mean, he was actually very nice for the first hour, and then for the second hour, he kept wanting me to do something different, and he got kind of frustrated, you know. And I would say, well, wow, okay, and I would do different stuff, and he'd go, well, that's not right, you know. And so it was just one of those, but it was a good session, and like I said, it was 2 hours and 15 minutes of my life. I am. But it translated into a nice big character in a major motion picture.
Gosh, hearing that about Michael Bay is crazy. I've heard a lot of things about working with Michael Bay, and I
think he's a genius, you know, honestly, because of what he does. But you know, the time that I spent with him, I mean, he was very nice, and then he got time challenged and became very abrupt, you know. So whatever, you know, that's show business, you know. I think the movie was fun, you know, honestly.
What are your thoughts on the live action movies, like as a whole? Have you seen all of them? Have you seen some of them?
What do you mean by action movies?
Live action, the live action Transformers films.
I've seen, you know, I don't think I fit in their demographic anymore, you know, sorry. You know, I mean, I've seen the ones I was in, you know, the one I was in, and I've tried to watch others. My kids go to them, you know, but they're in their early to mid 20s now, you know, and they went to them for years. So, and again, I don't play video games. I tried to play them. When I tried to play Halo, I got killed before I could figure out who I was, you know. So it was just, I'm really bad at it, you know. One of my favorite things was like, you know, when my kids, they're out of the house now, but it's like I would hear them in a room, you know, playing a video game, going, "I just killed Dad." So it's, you know, there's some joy in that, allowing them to fulfill their Oedipal urges, you know.
Right. Did you get to meet Hugo Weaving or any of the? No.
Nope. I told you I had a 2 hour and 15 minute for Lazerbeak, and the other stuff, like I said, it's always done. You know, you come in and you have your session scheduled, and you work with the director and the script, and that's pretty much it. You know, you don't get to see anything until, you know, they put out the end product, if they send you a copy of it, you know, which my kids were always happy for, that I would get one, you know. But now I don't anymore, you know. Maybe it's because they know my kids are grown. I don't know, you know. We've been giving this to this guy for 20 years. I'm not giving him anymore. Right?
Right.
He's got to be grown up by now.
Yeah, these kids gotta be very, very old. I really love what you've done with Transformers, and Transformers is a massive franchise onto its own. But another massive franchise you were a part of is Call of Duty. Now, I am a huge Call of Duty fan, and you got to play the character of Russman in the Call of Duty Zombies side story. So, I really, out of the 4 zombie people, because they rotated the team from Black Ops, I was a huge fan of Russman. I like his character a lot, even though, you know, I'm team OG zombies, Rick Toffin, Nikolai, and Tank. I love them, but I really did enjoy your portrayal of Russman. And my question to you is, what was the most intriguing part about Russman to you?
Well, is that he wasn't actually like military, you know. He was a Cajun guy from the swamps of Louisiana, you know, and you know, hi, my name is Russ Man. I'm gonna go kill me some deadheads, you know. It was just fun to do, and I just, for some reason, the voice came to me. You know, it's how it works. You suddenly, you know, you read the material, the voice suddenly starts speaking in your head, and you try as best as you can to let that voice out of you. And that's how it works for me in everything that I do, you know. And when things don't work, it's because it doesn't speak to me inside, and there's not a voice that kind of manufactures itself inside me and comes out, you know. So I usually don't get hired for those kind of parts, you know, but I get hired when the voice speaks to me. Let me put it that way, you know. Or speaks through, you know. Yeah.
Makes complete sense to me. Obviously, Russman came into Black Ops 2, and I'm pretty sure he died. And then came back.
Yeah, but then they brought him back, and I think it's out already. I did I had to sign an NDA. This is almost 2 years ago. You know, it was before COVID. I did a whole series of Russman sessions. You know. Which were fun.
They brought him back for Black Ops 4. Yes.
Is that what it was?
Black Ops 4.
Yeah, I thought it was Black Ops 9. I was, you know.
Listen, Keith, you're just as lost on the numbers as me.
I often know the character because I know the character, but you're given a code name, so you don't know what you're actually working on. So, you know, it is what it is, you know.
Listen, there've been so many Call of Duties, I'm lost myself. So it's completely fine, but it's just, I really enjoy that character, and I'm glad that they brought him back, because there wasn't a lot. I'm sorry?
Me too. I was glad they brought him back. He's fun to do. You know?
And I'm glad that they did bring him back, even though I wish they would have utilized them more, but there was a lot of contention for that group of zombies characters, because like I said, we were coming from, you know, Tank Dempsey and Nikolai, and we've been with this group since Call of Duty World at War,
but it wasn't a mainstream Call of Duty thing. Mine was always, it was downloadable content, I think, you know.
No, you were in transit, and that was the main thing, and then there was like DLC, but the zombies have always been DLC.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm just really.
I tried playing Call of Duty once, and again, I got killed before I could figure out who I was.
You remind me a lot of my mom trying to play any game with my little brother. She's always getting beat up or killed in Mortal Kombat or something. My little brother or me, we're playing video games back and forth, and she's getting.
My sons would just laugh at me, you know, because they look, you're dead, Dad. You're dead. Well, who am I? Can't even figure out what screen I am. You know, right?
Right, the split screen. You're trying to figure out which screen you're supposed to.
There's like 4 screens. What screen do I look at? I don't even know yet. You know, so it's like I finally, you know, I think that I'm not in the demographic for playing this, and it's like I'm glad that I get to be in them. I'm glad that you guys get to play them, but you know, don't ask me to play them. Honestly,
do not.
You'll be extremely disappointed. You know, and what happened? You know, oh man, he really isn't Russ Man. Jeez, that's terrible. You know.
But no, you are Russman to us and so many people around the world, and a lot of your work has helped so many people, including myself, just comfort them and help them feel better. Like, I watch Transformers, like, to go back to Transformers Dark of the Moon real quick, like, I watch that whenever I'm sad, and I just lay down and wrap myself in my blanket and turn the cool AC on and just lay down and just watch that whenever I just need like a load off. And just a lot of the work you've done has helped so many people around the world, and I really do hope.
I'm glad that I can afford to do that for you. I'm glad that happens. You know.
Another character I really wanted to talk about was you voiced Venom in 2 roles, and from what I've heard, they're very different. Like you played Venom in Web of Shadows, and then there was this VR game where you played Venom.
I remember doing it. I don't remember anything about it. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's if I could find a clip, maybe I could find a clip of what I was talking about. But
I remember doing, and they were fun jobs to do. But they've also had a bunch of different Venoms, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they have a whole movie coming out soon with Tom Hardy as the voice of Venom. So there's been so many. For Web of Shadows, he was very dark. His voice was like kind of like the Ironhide thing, but for Venom in the Avengers games, he was very more like Lazerbeak and more like funny, like Joker-esque.
Again, it just depends. Because they were different franchises. I mean, it was the same. It was Venom, but it was part of different shows with different showrunners and different directors, different writers. So it was they were just different. So they had different takes on it, And so I would go with how they directed me,
Out of all the roles we've discussed, Ironhide, Laserbeak, Venom, and Rustman, who is your favorite character to voice?
Laserbeak, and then Rustman, and then the Didact, I think, was my favorite.
Didact is so cool. I made a video edit where I used a clip of the Didact talking where it was like humanity's suffering is. Hold on, what was it? It was like humanity's.
I had to have those speeches memorized, but that was, geez, I don't know, what was it? 10 years ago, 15 years ago? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, but
I remember speeches from when I was very young, when I was first starting in the theater, but I don't remember the latest stuff, although I remember the openings to it, there's a, "We are forerunners, guardians of all that exists."
My brother is such a huge Halo fan, so I'm sure he'll be freaking out when I tell him I spoke to the Didact, so... What we're going to get into is my fun part of the interviews called Weird and Wacky, which is where you, sir, have 1 minute to answer a series of weird and random questions. No one has gotten to a record of 15 questions, although the champion, Simon Norfleet, has answered a record of 14 questions.
If this is trivia, I will never get any of it right.
It's not trivia. I promise you, not even close. Because I would feel so bad for you guys because I wouldn't even know. But it's just basically random questions about yourself with weird, crazy stuff.
Okay, I'll try to answer them as best as I can.
Okay, so I'm gonna start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Weirdest food you've ever eaten?
Octopus, raw.
Least favorite drink?
Oh, jeez, a veggie smoothie.
Favorite movie?
Casablanca.
Dumbest thing you did as a kid?
Jump off a roof thinking that I could parachute down.
Superpower you wish you had in real life?
The ability to fly.
Least favorite brand of shoes?
Least favorite brand of shoes. Anyone that's uncomfortable.
Would you rather drink sweat or eat toenails?
Drink sweat.
Favorite pizza topping?
Sausage, green pepper, and mushroom.
Least favorite song?
Least favorite song? I couldn't even think of it, honestly. Happy Birthday, probably.
Song that's been stuck in your head for a long time?
Oh, I have so many heirlooms.
And time.
Take me to church.
To church. And this is my last question. I know you gotta go, so this is my last one. Before I get off, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Keith. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to speaking to you. You've been so amazing and gracious with your time, and I'm really glad I got the opportunity to speak to you.
And for me, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. My last question to you is, what would your current message to the world be during these current times that we live in? Obviously, we're living in a global pandemic still, even though we're coming out of it. Laws are being changed. Obviously, we're seeing the stuff that's going on in Jerusalem and Palestine. There's so much going on around the world. What would you say to people who are down and in need of hope?
Well, first of all, I would say to everyone, treat other people the way you want to be treated yourself. Follow the golden rule. That's what it basically comes down to. Be kind and love one another.
All right, guys, that was my interview with the amazing Keith Szarabajka. And Keith, before we leave, is there anything you would like to plug?
Well, in search of a pig, you know, the comedic comic space soap opera webisodes should be popping up in sometime by June, I think. You know.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
And I'm in a movie. I'm in a new movie with Riz Ahmed too, called Invasion. It hasn't come out yet. It's still in. It's with Riz Ahmed and Octavia Spencer. We shot it last fall.
Wow.
I don't have a huge part. I have a nice little part though. It's fun.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, Keith, in the words of Lazerbeak,
working with you.